Hello there. Today we're finally going to talk about LiveView. And what is LiveView exactly? It is the default front-end framework from Phoenix. And just like React, it is used to create rich user interfaces. Now, contrary to React, LiveView is a server-driven approach to creating highly interactive UIs because React uses JavaScript and it is primarily used on the client side. So you ship a ton of JavaScript to the client, and then React mounts. And for example, whenever there's a state change on the front end, then React hydrates the page, it updates the page with the new state. Every time a state changes, then the page or the component re-renders. Now, Phoenix does the same thing, but this is done via a WebSocket connection, and this is triggered by the backend. So once you change a state on the front end, the backend, the server, detects this change. It does some processing on the backend and then pushes via the WebSocket a diff to the front end. Then the front end receives this diff and patches the DOM. Okay? Now, don't worry, this sounds very theoretical for now, but I am going to show you the WebSocket on the network tab, and then we're going to inspect those diffs live, okay? Now, what exactly are we going to build today? Let me open up shop again, open up router. We have the product controller, right? And then we have this index page, which is responsible for listing all the products. Now I want to do the same thing, but now instead of using a dead view, just HTML, now I want to use LiveView. So I'm going to jump a couple of lines, and then to use LiveView, instead of saying get, you're going to type live, the path that you want to use. On my case, it's products -live, followed by the name of your LiveView module. I'm going to create a new module called product live. So I'm going to say product live. And the way that I like working with live views is I have a live folder with a bunch of product live modules. And then the naming that I like to use is product live.index or product live.show, for example. It's product live dot and the name of my page. So for now, I'm going to use product live.index. And I should get a warning here because this module does not exist. So I'm going to go back to the folder structure. Yeah, I already did this before the video, so let me just remove this. But you're going to lib shop web, then new folder. Here I'm going to create the live. And then inside live, I'm going to create another folder called product_live. And here I'm going to have a file called index.ex. Then def module shopweb.productlive.index. This is correct. And how do I tell Phoenix that this module is a live view? You're going to call a macro from shopweb dot, oh sorry, not dot, shopweb, comma, and then live view. Okay, this tells Phoenix that we're working with a live view instead of a controller. Okay, let's try to render a page first. Now, we already know by now that in order to render something on the page, you can use this magical function called embed templates, but I already use this way too much. So for now, I am simply going to run render. So I'm going to say def render. Render takes an assigns variable, do, and then I need to use the H sigil with 3 double quotes. Now, this is Higgs templating syntax. If you know nothing about Higgs, then it's gonna be tough to watch this video. And I already recorded a video about Higgs and function components. So this is a prerequisite to understand Phoenix, okay? So go back a couple videos and watch those before this one. So now I'm gonna say h1. This is the product live page. Whoops, what did I do here? Okay, this is the product live. So I'm gonna start off on my server. It's IEX-s. Okay, gonna open up localhost port 4000. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. Now we're going to go to /products-live. Okay, this is the product live page. It's using LiveView. We can even open up the network tab. Now watch this out. I'm going to refresh. You can now see two WebSocket connections here. The first one is used for local development. So in production, you're not going to see it. And this one is the one that you're going to see in production. We can see all the messages here, okay? So we establish the WebSocket connection once, and then every time that you navigate between live views, you're just going to keep reusing this live socket connection, okay? So let me close this. Now, how do I query the products on this page? There's a very important function which is responsible for the life cycle of LiveView, and it's called mount. Now, you can think of mount just like a use effect in React, but with an empty dependency array, meaning that it runs once. When the component mounts, when the page mounts, you're going to call this function, and that's it, only once. So let me go back here, close this. How do I write the mount function? It's def mount, and this function needs to have three parameters. The first one is params, okay? We're not going to use params, so I'm going to prepend an underscore. Now, the second one is the session. This is very important if you're working with authentication, for example, but we're not. And the third one is the socket. All right. And okay, now I can do anything here. I can query the database, I can assign variables, as long as I return an OK tuple with the socket. I can do whatever I want. The only rule that I need to follow is I need to return OK and the socket. So if I go back and refresh, everything's working. This is great. Now, let's start off by querying the products. So I'm going to add an alias, shop.products. I'm gonna say products is equal to products.list products. Okay. And here I can do something like this. Socket is equal to socket, then pipe operator, assign, assign. I want to assign a products variable, and then the products that I just queried. And then that's it. We are going to return the new socket with the products. If we go back here, that should work. Awesome. Now I have the products available on my assigns. So here I can do something like this. Div, I want div. And now I want to iterate over each product. So I'm going to say for, and then product inside products. Here I'm going to have a p tag with the product name. So I'm going to say product.name. Let's see if this is working. Okay, Hearthstone, Call of Duty, Spider-Man, and we're getting a warning here. What's going on? Yeah, now, as I mentioned, LiveView 1.0 got this new update, and we can use this syntax instead of the ugly brackets with the percentage sign. but for some reason, Elixir less or yeah, the language server is not properly detecting that we are using the product variable. So this is a bug. It should be fixed in the future, but for now, you can just ignore it. Okay, we now have the product name. Fine. So to use LiveView, I want to implement a feature to like and dislike a product. So I'm gonna say something like this, product name dash, and then likes. Likes, it's going to start off with 0. So we have likes 0. And it would be nice if we could use like a thumbs up or thumbs down button. And then whenever we click on each one of them, we're going to trigger a like or dislike event. And how are we going to use the icon? Now, many people don't know that this is like a secret feature, but open up core components and search for def icon. Whoa, what is this? Icon, hero X mark solid, hero arrow path. What is this? Well, Phoenix comes with hero icons built in. So you don't need to install anything and you can use hero icons. And we have this very handy icon function that we can use whenever we want to use an icon. So here we have an example, icon name, and then you need to add hero dash, followed by the name of your icon, followed by the style of your icon. So if you go back to like the hero icons website, we have outline, solid, mini, micro. So this is how you use it. Hero, the name, and then mini, for example. Okay, I am going to search for thumb. We have thumb down, thumb up. We have this micro, mini, solid, outline. I think I'm gonna go with mini. Mini looks good, right? So let's copy this example. Below the product name, I'm gonna add this one, this one. We have hero. The name is hand thumb down. So let me paste here. Hero, hand thumb down. And then we have hand thumb up, followed by mini, which is the style of the icon, right? So mini. All right, let me save that. Go back to Chrome. And by default, the icon is huge, but we can use Tailwind to decrease the size. So inside each component, I'm gonna say class equals size dash 2. No, size 2 is too small. I'm gonna say size 4. All right. Now, doesn't look super beautiful, but that's what we want. So I'm gonna leave it as is. And I want to remove this. I think it's too much noise on the page. Let me remove this H1. All right. Now, how do we implement this feature of liking and disliking the product? Because right now it does nothing if I click here. First of all, we need a variable to track if this product was liked or not. Now, ideally, we would track that on the database. So whenever you click like or dislike, you're going to increment or decrement a counter on the database. But I want to handle this just on the state. I don't want to save it on the database. And how can we do that? We can create a new variable. I'm going to name it likes. And likes is going to be a map. Inside this map, we're going to have the ID of the product, and the value of the ID will be the number of likes. So like we have the product of ID 1. 1 will have 10 likes, and then product ID 4 is going to have minus 2 likes, which is 2 dislikes. And how can we do that in Elixir? We can use enum.map on the products. So let me use the pipe operator here. Products. All right. We have enum.map. And here we want to return, I'm going to say fn product. we want to return the ID and the default like number of 0. And I'm going to use a tuple for that. So I'm gonna return a tuple where the first element is product.id. The default value is 0, followed by an and. And then I'm going to create a new map from this list of tuples. So I'm gonna say map.new. All right. Now, I don't know if this is working, so before we assign it to the socket, I want to run a dbg here, just to be safe. So I'm going to say likes. I want to see if I'm calculating this right. Let me just... Yeah, I don't need to recompile, but I always like recompiling manually, just to make sure. And then hit refresh here. Yeah, it seems to be working. I have product of ID 1 with 0 likes, ID 2, 0 likes, ID 3, 0 likes. Very nice. And these horizontal pipe operators are annoying me, so I'm gonna break the line here because I have OCD apparently. And then also on the socket. All right. So likes is correct. I want to assign a new variable here, which is called likes. All right. And now instead of saying likes is 0, I want to grab the likes variable. This is a map. Inside this map, I want to access the product.id. All right. And seems to be working. Likes 0. All right. And I don't know if you realized, but every time I hit refresh, it seems that my local server is very slow. You can see the top bar loading. It's very slow. And that's because I have a latency simulator enabled. We're going to talk about this soon, but I'm just going to say for now, live socket.disable latency sim. Okay, so now if I hit refresh, it's pretty much instantaneous. Nice. All right. Okay, we have our variable for likes. So how do we change that? We need to create sort of an event, one for like and another one for dislike. And how can we create an event in Phoenix? There's a very handy function called def handle event in Phoenix. And we use this function to handle an event. So handle event, the first parameter is a string with the name of your event. Here I'm gonna say like, okay. And then the second argument is all the values that you want to send to this event. For now, I don't want to send any values. So I'm going to say underscore props or something. Props, no, values. All right. And the third argument is the socket. All right. Now, you can do anything you want inside this handle event. Just like the mount function, you can query the database, you can change the state, do whatever you want, as long as you return a tuple with no reply and the socket back. Okay? Now, I want to copy this, paste again, but now instead of like, I'm going to say dislike. Okay. Great. We have two events, one for like, another one for dislike. And how do we trigger them? There's a very handy prop that you can pass to components in Phoenix called phx dash, I forgot the name. Click. So in phx dash click, whoops, you're going to pass a string with the name of the event that you want to trigger. Here, I want to trigger like. And then down below, I want to trigger oops, paychecks, click, dislike, and I think these two are flipped. I have thumbs down with dislike, and then thumbs up with like. Okay, so let me just add the DBG here for testing. I'm gonna say liked, and then I'm gonna copy this and say disliked down below, just to make sure we're triggering this. So this is recompiled. I'm gonna go back to Google Chrome. I'm gonna hit the refresh, click on thumbs down, and then nothing happened. Why? Well, hold up, we have a warning on this component. So if you hover the mouse here, undefined attribute, phx click. Now, if this was a native HTML element like the p tag, we would not get this warning. But because icon is a custom component, we need to specifically add a prop named phx-click. So let me go back to core components, and I could go here and say attr phx-click, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm going to do something very smart. I'm going to create a new prop called rest. Rest could be anything, okay? It could be a string, an integer, phx-click, whatever you want. So the type of rest is actually global. We have this type if you want to say that it could be anything, okay? And then I'm going to grab this rest variable and append at the end of this component. So I'm gonna do this at rest. Okay, so now we should no longer see a warning because we can pass anything to this component. The warning, whoops, the warning is gone. So if I go back to Google Chrome, I'm gonna hit dislike on Hearthstone. Let me go back. Disliked, awesome. If I click on like, liked, yes. So our events are working. All right, so how do we change the variable? Well, just like we did here. You can grab the socket, you can run the assign, and that's it. So I'm gonna say, for example, I'm gonna say likes is equal to map.put. I want to put inside the socket.assigns.likes. So I'm gonna grab the likes from the assigns, and then here's the thing. I need a key and a value to update this map. The key for the likes map is the product ID. How can we grab the product ID from this event? Because right now we're triggering the event, but we're not sending anything to the event. So how do we even know which product we want to like? Right now we don't know. So I'm going to comment this out. And here's the magic part. The values is how you extract a value from the event. So I'm going to remove the underscore here. I'm going to run a dbg on the values, just so we can see what's going on. So I'm gonna say dbg values, nice. And how do we pass a value? We're using phx-click to trigger an event. How do we pass a value? You can add phx-value dash and then the name of the value that you want to pass. So here you could say, for example, product ID, but for now I'm just going to say ID. So phx-value ID is equal to the product.id. And I'm going to do the same thing for the thumbs up. So let me break the line. Okay. Now watch what happens. I'm going to clear the terminal, go back. If I click on dislike, go back. Whoa, the values is a map. Inside this map, we have an ID. And the ID of 1 because we clicked on Hearthstone. If I click on Spider-Man, we should get an ID of 3. So click here, ID 3, awesome. Now I just want to add another class here because this is annoying me very much. I need to add, whoops, cursor pointer. This is annoying me so much. Cursor pointer. I need to know on my front end that I can click here. Great. Now my front end OCD is gone. All right. So we're passing the product ID through phx value ID. We can even pattern match here. Instead of grabbing values and then doing values.id, for example, we can simply do the following. Values is actually a map. And inside this map, I am expecting an ID. This ID, the key, is a string of ID. And then I'm going to bind this ID to an ID variable. Very nice. So now I can finish my function. I can say likes is equal to map.put. I'm going to grab the existing likes from the assigns. The key that I want to change is the ID. And the new value is socket.assigns.likes. And I want to grab the existing likes for this ID plus 1. And if I do a dislike, I want to do the same thing, but instead of plus 1, I want to say minus 1. All right. So I need to assign this new likes variable inside the socket. So I'm going to say socket is equal to socket, then assign likes is equal to likes. All right. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the likes side. All right. Let me go to Google Chrome. So if I hit dislike, whoop, we got an error. Let's check this out. What is the error? And the error that we're getting is because we're trying to perform an arithmetic operation on top of a string. Now, ID, we're grabbing from the values. That is a string, not a number. And likes apparently is a map of numbers to numbers. The keys are numbers and the values are numbers. So before we run this, I need to say ID is equal to string.to integer ID. And then I need to do the same thing on this like. Okay, this should fix the error. Let me go back. If I click on like, yes, there we go. We have Hearthstone, 1 like, 2, 3, 4. If I dislike Call of Duty, we now should get a negative number and positive number here. Very cool. So this is the bare bones of Phoenix LiveView. And let's actually inspect the network again so you guys can see the events triggering. And you can filter by WebSocket. I'm going to refresh. We have this first connection here. Now check this out. We have 4 events. If I start clicking on like, as you can see, we have lots of events getting triggered. If I click on dislike, more events are getting triggered. Now, as I mentioned, you're not going to return the number of likes. On this WebSocket, you're going to return a diff. So if you click on anything here, this is hard to understand as a human being. Like, this is not human readable. It's just a bunch of numbers with more numbers and some identifiers. So this is not meant for us to read. It's very hard to debug visually, but that's what's happening. We're not pushing the variables. We're not pushing the number of likes, the products. No, we're pushing a diff through the WebSocket connection. Very cool. And one very important thing that I wanted to mention before we finish this video is, as I mentioned, this is a server-driven approach, right? We're handling the state change on the server, which means that if I deploy this to the United States and I try to access this website in Brazil, which is where I live, what do you think it's going to happen? We're going to have some latency, right? and you can try to simulate this latency using LiveView. So you can open up your console, clean this up. You're going to type live socket dot enable latency sim. And here you can pass the number of milliseconds that you want to emulate. I'm gonna say 500 milliseconds, which is, I think from my testing, the latency between Brazil and the United States is around 200 milliseconds, 300. I mean, São Paulo have a pretty good internet connection, but still, 200 to 300, it's kind of slow. So now if you try to use the app, I'm gonna hit latency, again, latency. Now the dislike, this is very slow, very slow. So this is something to be aware of. I like using LiveView and the events in LiveView if I need to talk to the database, because then I already need to make a network call. Like I need to talk to the database, so it's inevitable that I'm going to call the backend. But for something like this, where the database is not involved, this is client side only. For this use case, I would not use LiveView. Or if I did use LiveView, I would probably implement some form of optimistic UI. So I would immediately show through JavaScript the updated number of likes, but still push the event to the backend. Okay, so just to be aware of, this is server driven, so you have the latency of the network call. All right, and what about testing? We finished this new feature. How can we test this? Let me close this, close that, close this. In order to test a LiveView, you can go to the test folder. And as I mentioned on the test crash course, we have the con case and the data case. We use the data case on testing if you want to test contexts. But if you want to test higher level, so on the controller level or LiveView, you're going to use the con case macro. Now check this out. We have some things being imported here. And if you want to use some helpers to test LiveView, you need to add another import here. It's called import shop web dot, oops, not shop web, import Phoenix dot live view test. Okay, now you have a bunch of helper functions available to you. Let me close this. So inside the test, shop web, I created a folder called live. Inside this folder, I'm gonna create a file called product underscore live underscore test dot exs, because this is a script file. I don't want to compile this to production. All right, so def module, we have shop web dot product live test. Here I need to call use shop web dot con case. And then just like a regular test, you can start off by writing a describe block or simply a test block. So I'm gonna say test live / products dash live do. Okay. And just like the controller test, you have a context available to you. And I want to pattern match the con that is inside the context. Nice. And how do we call a LiveView? All you have to do is call function live. Here you can pass the con followed by the path. And I want to use verified routes. I'm going to say / products live. If I mistype, I should get a warning because of the verified routes. I should get a warning. Yeah, apparently it's not working. So I'm just gonna say products live. Okay. And from this function call, we receive a 3-item tuple. The first item is okay. The second one is the live view that we're going to receive. So I'm gonna call this product underscore live. And the final one is the HTML. All right, I can simply run assert with this and it should pass. So let me copy the name of this file, copy relative path. I'm gonna close the server, run mix, test, and the name of this file. Okay, the only warning that we're getting is that product live and HTML are not being used, which is correct. Now let's proceed. I want to test the mount. And what are we using on the mount? We are listing products. So I want to make sure that we have a list of products inside the HTML here. So I'm going to import shop.products fixtures. Here I'm going to create a new product. I'm going to say product is equal to product fixture. Nice. Now I want to assert that inside this HTML, we have the product dot name. Let's run the test again. Very cool. The test has passed. All right, but we are not testing LiveView. We're just testing the HTML. We're checking if inside the HTML we have the products. How do we test the events? I want to test the like. I want to test the dislike. We have a bunch of helper functions in order to test that. The one that I want to use here is called render click. So I'm going to say render click. Okay. Render click, it's going to receive a bunch of parameters. The first one is your live view. So I want to say product underscore live. The second one is an atom with the name of the event that you want to trigger. So here it's like, all right? And now it's the values that you're passing to the event. As I mentioned, this event is expecting an ID. So I'm gonna say ID. The ID will be the product.id, right? And what do we receive from this function? We receive the HTML back. And then we're going to change the HTML. We're going to show that the product with ID 1 has 1 like instead of 0 likes. So let me open up our index from product live. Inside our render, we have this code right here, product name, dash, and likes. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to even write another test here. I'm going to say that assert HTML. In the beginning, I want to see inside the HTML the product name. Oops, I need a string here. I need a product name. I want to interpolate this variable. I want product name dash likes. And initially, I want 0 likes. And I think I'm going to remove this, to be honest. Okay. And now I'm going to receive a new HTML back after triggering the like event. And I want to assert that now I have likes 1. Let's see if the tests are passing. Mix test here. Okay, errors were found. Oh yeah, this is not a binary. Okay, I got this error. I hate pronouncing this word, error. I get this error all the time where I'm expecting a string and I receive an integer or vice versa. Now, I am expecting a string on this case, so I'm gonna say that the product ID here is actually, I'm gonna say toString, okay, toString product.id. Okay, let's run again. Perfect, this is working. And now let's test the dislike event. Now I want to trigger dislike for the same product ID. And now if I dislike with 1 like, I should go back to 0. Okay, if I run the test, that's it. We have a working live test for our LiveView. And that's pretty much it for today. I wanted to give just a high-level overview of LiveView. This is just a crash course. It is impossible for me to cover everything about LiveView in one video. I'll probably have a bunch of other crash courses in the future, and then I'll be able to elaborate. But just to give you a taste of what's possible with LiveView, if you go back to the docs, which I always link in the description of the video, you can check, for example, the phx attributes. Here I used phx.-click, but we have many others. We have phx blur, phx focus. We have, if you're working with a form and you want to submit the form, you can trigger phx submit. And I don't know, if you want to validate the fields every time the user types, you can add phx-change to an input. And then you can have an event called validate email, for example. And every time the user changes the email, this event triggers the validate email, and then you do something on the back end. Okay, so you have infinite possibilities. And I didn't even talk about navigation between live views. This is a more complex topic, but I just wanted to give you like a high-level overview of the entire life cycle of a live view. Okay, so that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you next time.